Hello everyone, my name is Marina and you're listening to Tribecast episode 10. Besides having a nice round numbers of episodes, Tribecast has celebrated 2 months since the pilot first came on air. And I just cannot be silent about it. Let me give you some summary of what has been reached so far before I move on to this week's interviews. As it was said, we have released 10 episodes and Tribecast can be now found on 3 platforms, which are Spreaker, iTunes and YouTube. Furthermore, we have just got our own Twitter, so it's even easier for you to leave the feedback. All episodes include more than 10 interviews with various representatives of startup world, and they have been listened to more than 600 times so far. I'm actually impressed by how cool we are. Let's continue. My first guest this week is Mikael Uusimäkelä from Teacher Gaming. So let's talk with those who made it about how it can be reached. Yeah, hello Mikael, and tell us a few things about yourself.
My name is Mikael Uusimäkelä and I'm the CEO at a company called Teacher Gaming.
Speaking about Teacher Gaming, what do you guys do?
So our mission at Teacher Gaming is to elevate teaching with the help of video games. And not just any video games, the exact same video games that children are playing at home. So our history goes kind of back to 2011, so we've been at it for a while. So if you ever ran into a game called Minecraft, we first started with that and created the educational version called Minecraft EDU and worked on that for about 6 years. And during that time, we reached about 20,000 schools around the world, most of them in the US. About in English-speaking world, 8 to 9% of schools were using our products at that time. And in 2016, we sold that company to Microsoft. And that was kind of a soft exit for us, but that kind of made us, queasy. What do you do now? So we decided to do, more of the same thing. So instead of working with a single game, we now work with 51 different games. So we're basically kind of doing a Netflix of games for schools. And right now it's a happy mix of entertainment games and educational games.
Wow. You can go in my section of startups who made it.
I mean, the previous one definitely did.
What was the name, by the way?
So that company was called Teacher Gaming. And we actually changed company names in between. So if you now look us up, it's going to be 5 more minutes, but we still own the brand rights. So we're using Teacher Gaming as the company brand.
Okay.
But there's a 5 more minutes company who we don't mention because,
All right.
For brand consistency.
All right. How long did it take to your startup to get from the point, okay guys, let's do something, to the point we're making deal with Microsoft? Just very mathematically timely, what was it?
I mean, it took literally on a real life scale, it took 2011 until 2016. I joined myself that startup in 2013, late 2013. And at that point, I guess we were at about 2,000 schools, but it kind of accelerated from there. So it took 2 years to get to 2,000 schools, but during the next 2 years, we got to another 10,000 schools. So you kind of got the hockey stick figure where you actually get rapid growth.
In your opinion, what was the key to your success?
I guess being in the right place at the right time. When we started with Minecraft, it wasn't such a huge deal. It was played by maybe 50,000 people. So it's kind of early on. Alexia, our CTO, and Santeri, and one teacher from US founded the company. It kind of started from their own experiences in classroom. Both Santeri and Joel, our US counterpart, were teachers and using the game in their own classroom. So it kind of started from your own needs and figuring out what you would need. So kind of having the intuition what the user might actually need, but then being at the right place at the right time and sticking through it, the difficult times for those guys. So raising my hat to them. But also, I mean, with the current company, we had the luxury of having a successful exit behind us. So raising your, seed funding and stuff was easier than it would be for many people. So that kind of gives you a kickstart.
Okay. And again, in your opinion, for an early stage startup, what is the main problem that stops them from making it?
I guess you're going to have to start with the definition of a startup, because it feels like right now that every company that actually pops up is a startup. I mean, obviously every company can be a startup, but kind of the definition is that you're a small company or, you're looking for a scalable business model. But, if you end up having, I want to make this cart that sells yogurt, that's a good business, but it's probably not going to be a scalable business. So I guess actually being on the lookout for that scalable model. I guess there are opportunities, pop up, that let you make kind of a steady revenue. That we could be, just doing a small scale in Finland and, making 10,000 euros every month. That would pay 2 people's salaries and we would be still happily, living and, I would have some extra income as well. But that's not scalable yet. So actually getting past those points where you have those kinds of easy outs that, you can be comfortable, but actually be looking for the scalable thing that's going to be turning into $1 million or $100 million business. We've been through a couple of accelerators, and one of them had this really kind of a good thought exercise, so that every startup CEO or founder should be right on the spot. If I ask you, how are you going to make 100 million a year? You should be able to do that math in your head. Not like super detailed, but you should be able to explain to me right now how in 5 years you're going to be making 100 million. Not just that we're going to be growing, but how that's going to work, how many customers that's going to take, what market that's going to be on. Are there going to be any pivots down the road? Obviously, you don't know about those, but are you planning on doing anything once you scale to a point? So how do you get to your 100 million?
So having a big picture in your head.
Yeah, and having the kind of a vision that you're going to be actually doing a scaling up business. How do you turn your startup into a scale up, where every euro you put into your startup, it's going to make 5? You can make a business that grows steadily. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's not going to be a startup.
Thank you for your explanation and your opinion. Speaking of accelerators and other projects, I know that you were a part of the audience during Trybox and Startup World Cup. Could you comment on those 2 events?
I guess, one of the coolest things with Trybex was actually having the speakers coming out of Estonia, where you actually had a guy who had been running a unicorn company, where you actually had a company who had scaled up from that kind of a startup moment to a point where you are making, 1 billion. So having someone who actually has gone through that journey and actually having a chance to talk with them. So I had a chance with talking with Rein Lemberpo, who had been doing that with Playtech. So that was kind of a cool, kind of a highlight part of me. But I also seeing because obviously, you had Fiban and Estban there, so kind of looking at the similarities and the differences between different funding environments. They're surprisingly similar. There's obviously scale. Fiban is larger than Estban, but, just talking about, what the average ticket sizes for investments are and stuff like that. So I think that was cool. Broadening the funding horizons as well, so you're not stuck with Finnish angel investments or stuff. I don't have experience of Finnish angel investments or Finnish investments in general, so I'm not in a point to make those comments. But I think it was good for many startups in the audience to see that there were options for looking for funding.
And at this point, I think it will be good if I remind our listeners that the interviews with Rein Lemberpo, Asko Siebo and Ossi Numminen, who were speakers during Trybex, can be listened to in the previous podcast episodes. Speaking of fundings, you said that you did not ask investors. If it's not too much of a secret, where did your first money for a first startup came from?
Originally for Teacher Gaming, the first company those guys started in 2011. Mm-hmm. It was basically bootstrapping at the beginning. And I think they had something like very small grants from ely-keskus to get started. But it was basically self-funded because, at some point they hit that rapid growth. So they didn't need any external investments for that one. But with the current one, it was partly funded by ourselves. So we got money from the previous company, and part of that went into launching the new one. Then we got a R&D loan from Tekes and a couple of other grant options from them. And then we raised money from a couple of angel investors, one in Sweden, one in Japan, and one in the US. And then in late 2017, we raised kind of a larger seed round from Hong Kong-based VC called Makers Fund. And then there we have a couple of smaller stakeholders from accelerators as well.
Right. Does your startup plan to take part in any big projects any soon?
Hopefully. That's kind of one of the things, I guess, as a startup founder is the difficult part is keeping focus because there are always opportunities. It would be cool to work together and do this and this and this. So definitely one of the things for me, I've been CEO in our company for 6 months now. Prior to that, I was the COO, so I was looking at the operations. But right now, making the calls for what actually benefits your kind of vision and helping you to find that scalable path. So big part of it is saying no to things. So right now we are actually working, we're focused on looking for a channel partner in the US. And we've been going through a couple of different options and, a couple of different failed options during the last year. But hopefully we're working on a reseller partnership with a hardware provider in the US. And that deal has been in works for the last 3 months. So I'm hoping that will come through this month. So that's kind of been a bigger focus for us. That would help us basically reach about 20,000 schools in the US. So hopefully that goes through.
That's a big and ambitious plan. I wish you good luck with that. Probably I have one last question for today. Do you think that startups should get some help or should ask some help from officials like, the city of Tampere or...
Yeah, I mean, one difficult thing, I guess, for Finns especially is asking for help at any point or saying that, we are at a point where we need help. So just looking at our company right now, we're at a point where we still have funding left, but we're at a point where, we're saving on like office spaces and stuff like that. Actually going and saying that you actually need help is difficult for many people. It definitely has been for us. But actually, having that kind of a structure around you, whether that's the city of Tampere or universities or anyone else, I guess it also lowers the threshold for asking for help. We certainly learned that during the last 6 months, that it helps.
So it's not easier for you to ask help from platforms like Tribe Tampere, or is it?
I guess, it's definitely easier, I guess, when it's kind of a public institution who is not going to be hounding you for like valuations or how you perform. So if you went out to an investor, you still have to keep up appearances that, it's going to be the biggest thing in the world. But when you actually have like institutions surrounding you, you might be more honest with them, and hopefully more people would be, because people around you are willing to help, whether that's an institution or, just other co-founders or other people who are working on startups. So hopefully it lowers the threshold when you have those kind of institutions, because for them you can be honest.
Okay, thank you very much for being with us today. That was Mikael Uusi-Mäkelä from Teacher Gaming, and that was an honest and inspiring interview for this week. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we're having in the studio Tobias Takkinen, who represents Newspec and a bunch of other projects. Hello, Tobias, and thank you for having time for this interview today. Yeah, I probably should confess that I was late for the interview, so thank you very much for waiting for me. I'm super disorganized sometimes, but first thing first, please tell our listeners a few things about yourself.
Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Tobias Takkinen, and I'm one of the co-founders of Newspec, and among other things. And
what kind of projects are you involved now in?
Well, the main project, or if you can call it a project, it's a proper company, of course, our startup Newspec. That's the main thing I'm involved in at the moment. And I'm also a chairperson of this small grassroots level corporate development organization. We have a school in Gambia in West Africa.
So you have Newspec, and by the way, how old is it?
Newspec?
Yeah.
It's approximately 2 years old, 1.5 or so.
Okay, so you're going to this crisis period soonish.
Yeah,
probably.
Soonish. I think we already did the first pivot, so I think we are like the traditional startup who always, in Finland at least, pivots from B2C to B2B, and that's what happened to us.
What do you guys actually do? What's your product?
Well, at the moment we are building an AI tools for newsrooms which will help them to give more context and background information to the news articles automatically. So we're talking about like timelines and concept maps and stuff.
Do you think that you will find a market for yourself in Finland only, or do you plan to go abroad?
We're going abroad, of course. We are now piloting it in Finland, but after that, during next year, we will start going abroad.
Do you generally think that for a Finnish startup nowadays, it is possible to stay only within the country, or should everybody keep in mind that, they can start here, do a pilot within the country, but they should always be morally ready, mentally prepared for going abroad?
Well, I think at least you should consider the option for the very least, but of course it's not for everyone, and it also depends on the product you are selling. So if you are selling some Finnish language based product, so it's only Finnish market then. But I think that every startup should at least keep it in mind, because the Finnish market is such small, and like it's thousands times more market out there, so why should you stay only in Finland?
What do you generally think of Finnish startup ecosystem nowadays?
Well, I've been an entrepreneur for almost 2 years now, and during that time I've seen lots of improvement in the ecosystem.